I'm the kind of guy that doesn't like to do the same thing for very long. I'm Dave Navarro, and I'm a musician, but I also currently host an internet live talk show called Spread Entertainment, and that's on maniatv.com. I have two schools that I like to dabble in. One is artistic expression and creativity, and the other is simply entertainment. A lot of times, my favorite is when the two fuse together, and that happens on stage, the live experience. The internet TV show is more about letting these other artists and entertainers say what's on their mind. So they all kind of go hand in hand, but I know that if I did just simply one of those things, I'd be bored to tears.
Dave Navarro, we're talking about overcoming fear tonight and
Terrific.
Being fearless, and you certainly had a gut check moment about overcoming fear at age 15, man.
Yeah, I did. By the way to start off the show. That's a pretty heavy issue to get right into. But yeah, when I was 15 years old, my mother was murdered by her boyfriend at the time. And he also took out my aunt that same night. So needless to say, that was a very pivotal moment in my life.
What happened that day? Was this a guy that had been in her life for a while?
This was an ex-boyfriend of hers, and people ask me that all the time. What happened? But there is no answer I could give anybody that would explain something like that. It's obviously insane behavior, and so yeah, it definitely changed my life, and it brought on a lot of fear. It was that age I realized that anything can and could happen, and I spent a lot of years being very nervous about what potentially could go wrong with the world and with life, rather than looking into what's good about it.
You've been a phenomenal success in your business, but I want to stay there at 15.
Okay.
What was age 15 and a half like? Your mom was more,
It was really not a lot of fun, to be honest with you. The way I dealt with it back then, you're 15, you lose, the main, female relationship in your life, that's your mother. At that age, I really didn't know what to do. I got very heavily involved in music, thank God, because that's ultimately what I went on to do. But I also, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, got deeply into drugs and drug use as a way to deal with that. And the reason I say fortunately is because as a result of going down that path and getting very, very close to death and total destruction of my life, I've had to stop that behavior and really examine myself and change things 100%, in order to have what I think of now, which is a very free life and fearless life.
Fearless, but certainly you would call you anything but fearless. That night you almost took your own life.
Well, there were many of those nights. There was one night, actually, the final night before I actually put down the drugs altogether was, it was December 31st. My whole plan was, I'm going to stay loaded until January 1st, and then I'm going to go into rehab. But I didn't make it because the 31st I did an amount of heroin and cocaine. I did a combination that essentially I went out, turned blue, and I was waiting for my dealer to arrive at the time. He broke down my door and actually saved my life. But the really scary part was that when I came to, I bought more drugs from him and continued to get high. And it was kind of that moment when I had that reality check where I was like, okay, now this is crazy.
Well, where did that reality check come from?
I'm sorry?
Where did that reality check come from? Your mom gets killed.
Yep.
You've been drowning in drugs.
Yeah.
You almost killed yourself.
Yeah.
You start
many times. Yeah.
So where was the lightning bolt? Where was the light?
People talk about divine intervention, and I think that's a way to describe the unexplainable. There is really, because I had a million opportunities to have that lightning bolt go off. Because every day was an opportunity for that light to go on. Sometimes it just takes what it takes, and that's one of the scariest things about the disease of alcohol abuse and drug addiction is that usually the addict needs that moment to happen for himself or herself, and it's not about a group of people getting together and locking you in a room and doing an intervention. Sometimes it works, but a lot of times it doesn't. It has to happen on your own, and for me, I look at that as some kind of a divine intervention.
You've been straight for 6 years. You're here to motivate people and to inspire people. You've obviously done it through your music, Jane's Addiction, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. We're also so many of us are crippled by fear.
Yeah.
Fear of failure, fear of a trauma that traumatized it, didn't you? What's the Dave Navarro toolbox playbook to say, you know what, screw fear? You know,
ultimately, you'll be honest with you, the surprising thing is that the reason that I've found that I've had fear in the past, and the reason why most people are afraid, is simply because they think up scary thoughts. If you really think about how simple that is, it really kind of shifts one's thinking. You think up scary thoughts, you're going to be afraid. You know, for me, it's just a matter of walking through those thoughts or dismissing them as just that. You know, because ultimately, 9 times out of 10, the thing that you're afraid of is never as scary as you think it is until when you get there. And then the 10th time when it is, what are you going to do about it? It's not, you know, you can't change it anyway.
I always say to people, when they're, you know, either like they're afraid of starting a business or something personal, I say, okay, what's the black hole? Let's say, what is the darkest thing? You go out of business, or your marriage ends, or whatever. And when people kind of face the fear and go, okay, the boogeyman doesn't have that many boogies, that's it. And so you go, okay, maybe I'm afraid of that, but when you say, what am I really afraid of?
Yeah.
And that's it. I think that once people can grab that, they can do anything.
Yeah, and ultimately, at the end of the day, and this might be a little bit, you know, bigger of a subject matter than what you're getting at here, but at the end of the day, what does it matter? Like, at the end of the day, one of the things that really helps me from time to time is to realize that we're all going to end up dust sooner or later. So why not go out and conquer your fears? Why not go out and achieve your goals or attempt to achieve your goals? Because sometimes, even if you don't achieve the goal, the journey lends itself to finding many more different things and avenues and opportunities for you.
Did that dark moment, it can't get any darker for somebody to have their mom killed. When you were building your music career, when you were starting the various business ventures, your internet business now, does that play into, is there a piece of you like, well, can't get any worse than that? Like, there's nothing to be afraid of after that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the reality is that if you go through, for me, when I went through something like that and remained alive and life kept happening, regardless of how much fear I experienced, I became aware of the fact that there's really nothing you can do about much, and it's ultimately, you're gonna breathe another day, you know? And in some ways it became very inspiring, you know, because I was forced to learn these lessons at a very early age, and, you know, continue, you know, to learn them over and over as I grew up. But, you know, ultimately it's like, sometimes the most spiritual thing I can come up with is, so what? You know, so what is the big deal? What is the big fear? You know, ultimately, let's just go do it and tackle it. And sometimes just tackling it alone is an accomplishment.
So how has that played out for you, whether it's, you know, the bands you've played in, whether it's now your new business? You know, you didn't have any business back right now. You've got this kind of, you know, this whole online show, this whole thing. So is there when you ever catch yourself when you're about to do something, you're about to start something, you're about to invest in something, and you're kind of a little nervous? Is there a button that goes off that pushes you over?
Not really, because ultimately what I do when I take on anything that's business related or otherwise is I make sure that I love that thing regardless. You know, if I was going to take on some kind of a business venture of something that, you know, I don't enjoy, then yes, I think there would be an alarm that went on. But ultimately, I'm looking for the experience in the long run. And if things fail, which they can and do all the time, there's always the next thing.
Dave Navarro,
Thank
always
you so
great
much,
to you.
Tony.
Great inspirational story. Host and executive producer of Spread Entertainment. From the time he was 15, he has known the darkest reaches of fear and the liberation of that fearlessness. He embraced it. He said, so what, man? I don't care what you're afraid of. You're afraid of starting that business. It fails. So what? Go for it. More big ideas straight ahead.